Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thapliyal. Now, women empowerment and women financial empowerment is taking center stage among investors. Women, although still small in numbers as investors, have started taking stock of their finances. But there's still a lot to do around this. And today we are going to talk a very specific situation. We are going to talk about women financial independence or financial behavior after they get married. Let's discuss more on this. With me, I have Shilpa Bhaskar Gole, founder, NerdyBird Financial Wellness. Shilpa, good evening and welcome to the show. A very particular case here we have of women and their financial habits or their financial dependency after they get married. So I want you to explain this scenario considering two situations. One, a woman who is not financially established but gets married, and then how her financial situation changes, and one who is financially independent, is working and gets married and sort of sees a lot of issues around her being financially independent or a working woman. So you want to go first with which case? Depend.
So, thanks, Kavita, for having me here. And let me start with the case of the woman who is financially independent and goes into the marriage as an earning woman. So, if you look at her case, Kavita, there are a lot of issues around how she relinquishes her control over her money after she gets married. And I'm not generalizing this, but I'm saying that in many cases this happens. And when I talk about this relinquishing of control or giving up control, I mean it in mainly two ways. One is giving up control over how she uses her income or what happens to her income once she gets married. And the other is giving up that control over her assets. And when we talk about the income bit, what happens in many households, Kavita, is especially in the case of joint families, is that all the earning members pool their money into a fund. And then the patriarch of the household or the key decision maker ends up proportionating this amount amongst all the family members to spend. So despite bringing in a substantial income, she ends up getting a very budgeted amount to work with, and even for that she ends up having to justify how she's making that expenditure. So she loses a lot of that freedom of choice that she can experience with her money, because all the money is getting pulled into that common fund. What also happens there in such a case is, a, the loss of this decision making. B, she tends to also start then underquoting how much she is earning. She doesn't reveal to her family what the true numbers are, and that is one coping mechanism that I have noticed amongst many such women. When we talk about relinquishing control over assets, what also happens, Kavita, is that after she gets married, she does not often ask questions about what is being done on the investment front. So, a very common problem question that comes to me is that my husband makes all the investments for me. So, I have no idea what is going on, where is what, and what is on my name, what is not on my name. So, even at that level, the control is being given up and being given to someone else, a husband or a patriarch in the family, to handle, Kavita.
All right. So now what happens is it's not only a resistance coming from the husband side, but also the in-laws. Okay, how can one actually deal with it? Because in a case of a working woman, first before getting married, maybe you were really not used to these kind of financial resistance and constraints. Okay, and now you are in a setup where you have to maybe in a way give up your financial independence. And in a lot of cases, what's also seen is that if you have a partner who is really earning more than you, is much more in a stable and a strong financial grounding, the women kind of takes it, go with the flow and let the guy take all the calls when it comes to money planning or the investments, which also you just highlighted. How do we take care of this particular scenario? Because you don't want to look like a person who's very egoistic about what she's making, but also take care of her own financial independence, and also be in an environment where people are concerned about what you're doing, concerned about you are a financially strong, stable, independent woman. And you also want them to respect you, because that really makes the situation very tricky at the same time. So how can one deal with it? I think this is more of a counselor's question than a financial planner's, but then yeah, you can just give the way to deal with it.
Absolutely. So, Kavita, I think I'm also coming from a place of a financial coach. So, I think I can put my coaching hat on here and share some ideas with you. So, as a working woman in a family, married, I think it's very, very important that she has an open conversation, an honest conversation with all the family members. Now, I know that this is easier said than done, but this is a very good place. I mean, the earlier you start this conversation, maybe start with your spouse to begin with, and then open it up to your in-laws and other members in the family. But it's very important for you to express what your needs are and what your wants are, and what are your financial aspirations, how you see yourself progressing in life, what your lifestyle and the lifestyle you desire is. At the end of the day, what the woman needs to understand is that money is a means for her to achieve that financial freedom, to get to all the things that are important to her in life. So it's very important that she expresses that, so that then what they can do as a family is to sit down and then figure out what portion of her income she can apportion to her needs and her wants and her individual goals vis-a-vis to the family's finances. So I think this conversation, I think, is the first very important thing to do, Kavita. The second is when it comes to this income being what is happening right now is that as a coping mechanism, she is not telling people what her total income is. So a good way to deal with this also is that she can start to increase the number of deductible components in her income, especially if she's salaried. So when she's salaried and she knows that her income will come in the first week of every month, for example, she can already start to automate some of the investments that she's making towards her long term goals. She could request her employer to increase the deductible component, say in her EPF, by also availing the VPF or the voluntary provident fund component. And she can also look at increasing an NPS contribution, for example. So what that will do for her is that without really having to undercoat her income, the money that actually flows into her account will be a lot less, but at the same time, her future investments are being taken care of. And if she doesn't have access to these components, then she can also create her own automations around this, right? So she can look at automating her NPS investments and make sure that some part of her income every month by just pure automation is just going away, and she's left to give the income that she has in her account after that. So automate your SIPs, automate your NPS contributions, automate even your reckoning. So you can also do a recurring deposit, which is also a standing instruction at the end of the day, to ensure that this income just goes away by default and you're left to spend what is there in your account. So that can go to her in-laws and have a little bit to spend on her own lifestyle expenditure. So I found that this hack is something that has worked with a lot of women, Kavita. And on the assets front, I think it's important that she also starts to ask a lot of important questions here, because one is about having that open conversation, but the other is to actually ask these questions about what are those investments being made, and what is the money that is being invested in my name, what is there that is jointly held, because the assets that are in her name are actually her license to freedom, right? I mean, in any situation where she has to go her own way, for example, in a god forbid such a situation arises, she knows that she has that freedom of choice to do what she wants to and to be able to take those decisions with the assets that she's created for herself, Kavita.
Shilpa, not only the asset that she's created for herself, but then also after getting married, she also needs to know the kind of rights she has on the assets, or maybe the instruments which come along with getting married to a person. Okay, here I mean the real estate and the other investment instruments that might be a part of their financial planning. How can one take care of that, and how can one actually prove that it's their right to have that share, which is fair in a way for them?
Right, Kavita. So, in terms of what is fair, I think a good starting point is for her to understand the concept of Stri Dhan. So, the government has very, very clearly laid this out, and it's available in the rule of law to say that any assets that she acquired before her marriage, that she walked in with into the marriage, are completely hers, and her spouse or her in laws have no rights over it. Now, under the Stri Dhan, there are also certain other components. So, if she's received any gifts during her marriage, or if there are any inheritances that she has access to, even that those assets become hers. Now, as an earning woman, she would have also purchased her own investments and made certain investments of her own, created certain savings account for herself. So all of this income and all of these assets that she has created with her income are essentially her Sridhan. And what she needs to understand to begin with is that is something that nobody can touch without her, her clear intent being put in place. So that is number one, Kavita. And I think apart from that, what she needs to understand is what are the kind of distribution or division rules that come into play when it comes to joint holding assets. So jointly held assets are essentially not assets that have to go through a will. So what happens with these assets is that in case of either person's demise, the other person gets complete ownership over those assets. So she also needs to go a little deeper to understand what joint ownership means and what are the kind of inheritance or distribution and succession laws that come into place with jointly held assets, Kavita. So I would say that I think Stridhan and jointly held assets are two things that it's important for her to understand deeply.
So working women after getting married, these are the kind of financial compromises that you need to care of, you need to take care of, and also be on the part of safeguarding your financial independence. Thank you so much, Shilpa, for being on the show and helping our viewers with that today. Time for a quick break, but then post that we'll be taking our viewers' portfolio queries on the show, and with me will be Aditya Shah. But then before I step into a break, I'm going to leave you with our WhatsApp number and email ID, where we keep waiting for your financial portfolio queries, be it mutual fund, insurance, anything related to tax. 865-797-4571 is the number where you can WhatsApp us your questions, and you can also email us your queries on the moneyshow@etnow.tv. So more on this after this break.